Hey, the name's Cruel. That's King Rob Rule. With anticipation building for Monster Hunter Rise, I've decided to start this little series reviewing past Monster Hunter games. So far, I've covered Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate and Monster Hunter Freedom Unite. This week, I'll be covering a divisive game in the series, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. The game is an expansion to Monster Hunter Tri for the Wii and is available on the Wii U and the 3DS. I'll be playing the Wii U version just because it's easier to capture footage for. So far, I've played about 30 hours of the game, and I've played a little bit online, but I didn't even know that was possible until someone offered on stream to play with me online. So that was a bit of a surprise to me. But enough rambling. Let's dive right into the review. So the story of the game revolves around Moga Village, a small fishing community living on the sea. Moga ends up being ravaged by a Lagiacrus, an electric leviathan, which results in the village's boats and infrastructure being destroyed. This is where you come in. You are hired to help restore Moga Village to its former glory by gathering resources to rebuild and eventually become strong enough to defeat the Lagiacrus. Coming from Monster Hunter Freedom Unite, this is a step up storytelling wise, albeit a small one. All of the story is covered in text still, but it is a constant theme that you are reminded of over and over if you actually pay attention to what the villagers are saying. In Freedom Unite, I kind of felt like I was just doing quests for the sake of it. Whereas here, I felt like there was a stronger emphasis put on the story, the village, and the journey of your character. Everything was building up to getting the village back on its feet and defeating the Lagiacrus, and I really appreciated that sense of purpose in the single-player gameplay. Now there's more to the story than that, but I haven't played too much further than that, and to say anything else would be spoiler territory anyway. So, what's the gameplay like? Just like any other Monster Hunter game, the aim is to complete quests, hoard items, fight monsters, carve their corpses, and play dress up with their remains. You complete all key quests, clear an urgent quest, and then take on more challenging quests. All pretty standard stuff. However, Monster Hunter 3 introduces a new way to play with the expeditions. At any point between quests, instead of going out on another quest, you can opt to go out on an expedition to Moga Woods to gather resources for the further development of the village. To do this, you need to earn resource points while out on one of these expeditions. This can be done in a variety of ways. The most effective way I have found is to defeat as many large monsters as possible, but you can also get resource points from defeating small monsters and gathering certain items which get converted to resource points when you return to the village. You don't have a time limit on these expeditions, so the longer you stay out slaying monsters, the more points you will accrue. It's all dependent on how prepared you are, how efficient you can be, and how determined you are to get that one more monster slain, so that you can get as many points as possible. When you return from an expedition, you need to talk to the chief's son. Yes, that's really his name. And report your hunt. If you don't report, you won't gain resource points or the valuable resource items that you've worked so hard for. So it's important you make sure to do that. The points you earn can be used to farm for items, send boats out to gather fish and rare items, pay for meals, and complete villager requests. Something the game doesn't do a good job of explaining though, are the resource items you get as rewards. These serve many purposes, ranging from fertilizers for the farm, improving success rates for the boats you send out, trading at the Argosy, and more. It all sounds like a lot to take in, but after a few play sessions you tend to get the hang of it. I would recommend looking up a guide if you ever get stuck though, because you might assume an item is obtainable in the field or through crafting, when in reality you might need to defeat a certain monster under certain conditions while on an expedition, or trade for it at the Argosy. For example, I had this one incident where I had to trade in a supersized dung for a villager request, and I scoured the map for hours just looking for this item, this supersized dung. And it wasn't until someone actually told me on stream that to get the supersized dung, I needed to make sure that the herbivores were breeding in the Moga forecast, and then specifically slay a large Aptonoth, and then I would receive it in the hunt report when I returned from the expedition. Yeah, not exactly intuitive design. Now I've talked for a while, but I still haven't mentioned the Gammoth in the room, the water implementation in this game. So here are my thoughts. My first impressions of water exploration in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate completely blew me away. I remember being washed over, pun intended, with awe as I dived into this whole new world and fresh way of exploring in a Monster Hunter game that I had never experienced before. The sheer vastness of the underwater sections took my breath away, and this is based off an old as heck game, so that's saying a lot. I really feel like the intention behind the design of this world is to make it feel like it's this huge, living, breathing environment, and your place in that world is insignificant. Considering Monster Hunter Tri came out so long ago, I'd say this is a massive achievement for its time. But where things get really divisive is the underwater combat, and I can understand that. Especially with the way that certain weapons just don't perform well underwater. Now, I haven't tried all the weapons in the game, but I can speak from my experiences. I started the game playing Greatsword. Fighting Royal Ludroth was manageable because he didn't go underwater too much, and when he did, he wasn't overly aggressive. I could get through it, but it wasn't something I was exactly running back to with excitement. However, when I tried to fight Gobble, an almost exclusively underwater battle with the Greatsword, let's just say, if I hadn't been playing this game for a review, I would have raged and put the game down right there and then. It was slow, stiff, and incredibly punishing. A slow, methodical weapon like the Greatsword does not do well underwater, especially against a monster that thrives in that habitat. My solution was to experiment with other weapons, so I made a set of dual blades. This got me through the game much faster, and I felt like I actually stood a chance with the fast dodges and ability to disengage quickly. However, the real game changer was when I made the whimsical decision to craft a gun lance. Now, most people associate this weapon with being one of the most immobile weapons in the game, but underwater, no way. It is the king of underwater combat. The forward thrust sends you a huge distance forward, which allows you to keep up an aggressive assault from literally any angle. If you equip an auto guard charm, it makes some of the unavoidable attacks much easier to deal with. It almost feels like cheating, but if it makes underwater combat feel fun, I'll take it. That coupled with the literal explosiveness of the gun lance make underwater fights an absolute cakewalk. I would say I have mixed feelings about the underwater combat. On the one hand, it provided a feeling of expansiveness and wonder, while on the other hand, with certain weapons, it felt incredibly frustrating. I think if underwater combat and exploration was ever to return, they would need to implement a whole new system like they have done with the wire bug in Rise. In Rise, just about every weapon is viable in the air or for mounting monsters because the game has been designed that way. Whereas in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, it feels like the water physics were made a priority and the implementation of weapons underwater were an afterthought. I just think it would have been better if each weapon was given some kind of tool exclusive to underwater that made them more mobile or evasive. But those are my final thoughts on the underwater mechanics in Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. It's a shame so many people disliked it. I would really like to see an improved implementation of it return in a future title. As an older Monster Hunter game, there are multiple quality of life issues that may or may not affect your enjoyment of the game. Either way, these are things that you can get used to over time. For one, your item or equipment box is in your house, so if you need a specific item, say a cool drink, after accepting a quest in the sandy plains or volcano, you will need to cancel the quest, go back to your room, get the item, go back out, and accept the quest again. Because for some strange reason, you can't enter your house after you have accepted a quest. Not only that, but item loadouts still aren't present in this game, so you will need to manually unload items and restock from your item box between each hunt. Meals still haven't been simplified in this game. You will need to know what ingredients do what to gain the desired effects. However, the game actually does do a good job of explaining all of this to you and previews some of the effects, so I give it a pass. Gathering still takes a long time, and not all gathering points are obvious. However, there have been massive improvements coming from Freedom Unite, such as mining points and bone piles being far more obvious. That and the maps are much less cluttered, making most gathering points a lot more apparent. I mention all of these things so that newer players of Monster Hunter games know what to expect. Say like Monster Hunter World or the Monster Hunter Rise demo. But as long as you pay attention to the dialogue boxes at the start of the game and throughout the main story of the campaign, you should be fine for learning most of the basics. The monsters you are going to fight in this game will vary depending on whether you play online, the hub quests, or solo through the story, the village quests. This is because most of the key monsters in the story are cleared in the first rank of the online multiplayer, which I thought was odd. So if you want to avoid spoilers for monsters, stick to the village quest line before you take on the online quests. The monsters I'm showing are all from the base storyline, so I won't be spoiling any of those extra ones. You can expect to fight a wide range of monsters in this game, from the classic punching bags like Great Jaggy and Azuros, to the more intimidating fights like Giganox and the Gycris, and everything in between like Lagombi and Rathian. I would have figured after playing Monster Hunter Generations, I would have seen the majority of what Monster Hunter has to offer, but I was pleasantly surprised to see unfamiliar monsters like Kurapeko and Giganox, both of which I thought were incredibly unique, standout fights in the game. In fact, I would go as far to say that Giganox was my absolute favourite in this game, at least from what I've experienced so far. So much of the game I felt was too easy. Even the first Gycris quest you do, where you're supposed to repel him, felt way too simple. Giganox, though, was menacing. He's supposed to be the cousin monster to Kezu, which I'm not a fan of, by the way. But he's so different. He's got an enraged state almost akin to Gore Magala, and he's constantly shooting poison, which keeps you on your toes. It definitely woke me up from all the easy wins I was having leading up to it. And I almost forgot to mention, the music for Giganox is chilling. Way freakier than that ambience that Kezu has. Here, have a listen. Overall, I think the monsters in this game are fantastic, but who could expect less from a Monster Hunter game? When it comes down to it, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is a huge step up from the previous generation of Monster Hunter games, that being Freedom Unite on the PSP. The maps are bigger and less cluttered, the water traversal added a whole new level of expansiveness to the world, and the whole atmosphere of the game, from the story to the music and presentation, it's all brilliant. Now, by no means is it the best looking game on the Wii U, but keep in mind it is an expansion of a Wii game that is also played on the 3DS. Despite this, the art style still shines through beautifully, and is a huge improvement on the previous generation. Graphics aside though, the gameplay is solid. It's got its hiccups, sure, and not every weapon feels great underwater, but if you can find your groove with a weapon that works for you, it's just as addictive as any Monster Hunter game out there. And now is as good a time as ever to give it a try. At the time of recording this video, 3DS and Wii U copies of this game can be bought extremely cheaply, so if you can find one, definitely give it a shot. I've had a blast with it so far, and I'd recommend any Monster Hunter fan to try it. In the last video, with Freedom Unite, I said maybe avoid it if you're new to the series, but I think this game does just enough in the base story to teach players what to do without completely holding your hand along the way. So don't be intimidated, just give it a try. Anyway, that was my review for Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate. I hope you enjoyed the video and maybe inspired you to give it a shot. And if you've played it before, I hope I gave you a nice trip down memory lane. Let me know about your experience with Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate in the comments below. Have you played it? Was it your first game? Have you yet to try it? Next up, I'll be reviewing Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate for the 3DS. Capturing footage for this one may be a little bit difficult, so the format of the video may be a little bit different from what I've done in the past, but I hope to have a meaningful discussion about it at the very least. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to share it around with your Monster Hunter pals. It would really help me out a lot. Anyway, I've been King Rob Rule, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!